Welcome into this week's episode of the Young Dad Podcast. I'm Jay. Not with us today because he's working a big boy job is Aaron, but joining me today is one of my top three fellow dadcasters, fatherhood podcasters, Art Eddy from the Art of Fatherhood. Art, how are you today?
Doing really well, Jay. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate the compliment.
Hey man, if any of my listeners haven't listened to your show, The Art of Fatherhood, they definitely need to. It's awesome. I love it. You
Thanks,
have
man.
guys from major. You just have all the coolest people on your show. AJ Przinsky, that one was
Yeah,
dope. And it's like
thanks.
some of the people you talk to, I'm just like, I know this name because like media or like from somewhere, but like hearing them talk about being a dad and just like being human, it's it's kind of mind blowing because like I never have thought of them in that way, you
Yeah,
know.
no doubt, man. Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, and I gotta say, congrats to you on your book, man. You recently
Oh,
dropped a
thank
baseball
you.
book, right?
I did. I recently dropped a book called A Baseball Game with Dad by
Nice.
yours truly. It's my debut children's book. I'm super excited about it. It's a lot of fun. It's gotten some awesome feedback. It's actually inspired by the Tri Cities Dust Devils, minor league affiliate of the LA Angels, because that's my local team to
Yeah,
where I live, and been going to those games for the last 2 years a lot with my kids. And I have a media pass, and I'm a media member. I do beat writing for them and stuff. And so there's a lot of inspiration through that book to just kind of come to like what's something cool that I enjoy doing with my kids, and kind of the point. Even my 5 year old, she connected the dots. She's like, we do that. We go to these baseball games. That's what our baseball games look like. And I'm like, you get it, you get it. And it was really
yeah,
cool. A friend of mine posted that I hadn't talked to probably in like 8 to 10 years, and she posted and like she bought it. She was so excited because her husband just took their kid to their first A's game. Um, Within the last week of me publishing the book and getting it out there. So just like that really cool connection, just how like baseball brings so many people together. It's
yeah.
like one of the coolest things about baseball. And I was like, that's the whole point. Like this is why I wrote it. So
That's awesome. Yeah, you gotta love a book that like means something to you. And obviously, like you said, baseball, America's pastime. You get together, and I have to say, man, and I moved around a lot as a kid. Went to baseball, Major League Baseball parks and all that. Love seeing them, but also minor league baseball games are where it's at when you take the kids, especially the little ones. And now we live, my family and I live in North Carolina, and like you got the Durham Bulls, you got the Mudcats, you got a bunch of
oh
other ones, and like I gotta say, like this is such a dad comment. I was talking to this one gentleman I speak to at the grocery store. He works in the pros department, and we're talking about like what we're doing on our Father's Day last week. He's like, "Yeah, I'm taking my kids to the Durham Bulls game." I'm like, dude, it's great because obviously they got the fried food, but they also have like at the Durham Bowls, like you have like you can get your kids fresh fruit. And as stupid as
yeah,
that sounds, you don't want to like inundate them with fries, like all this fried stuff. Just as for me, I'm like, that's like one of my point of selling to other families out there. Like, they got fresh fruit.
I love that. I love that. No, it's super cool. And that's a where you are over in North Carolina. Like that whole area is polluted with minor league baseball teams. It's the best.
Yeah.
Like that whole area within you, you probably have a solid handful within like a couple hours of you.
Yep. My daughter
And
at the
if
Mudcats game, right before their school is getting out, she is in middle school and she's in band. She plays the saxophone. Her and some other people in the county, bunch of middle schools, went out there and played the national anthem. So that was pretty cool. I was like, that's a sweet moment right there. So it
that
was
is
pretty fun.
cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Art, a little bit more about you here. You and your wife, Jess, you guys are blessed with two daughters. You have a passion for fatherhood, and you enjoy talking with other dads about their fatherhood journeys. Art, you've created a few podcasts to focus on fatherhood, most notably, of course, The Art of Fatherhood. You've been responsible for securing over 500 guests on a variety of platforms, including hundreds of A-list fathers throughout pop culture, sports, business landscape. In addition to all that, you've also co-authored the book, The Life of Dad. You've also been a featured writer, podcast host, and producer. You've hosted Facebook Live shows on many platforms. You have a background in radio and journalism. You've also worked in radio in places like New York, New Jersey, and New Hampshire. So you've lived a heck of a resume so far. I mean, that's just inspiring to someone like me because this is like A-list people, sports, pop culture. We mentioned some of the people that you've had on, but what led you down this path to where you are now with the Art of Fatherhood, the show, and kind of getting here today?
Yeah, man. Again, thanks for having me on. I love, like you said, like in the bio, where like I love talking to dads about fatherhood. Love learning about like your fatherhood journey and all that good stuff. Here, just kind of chatting. But I was in radio, right? And so we all know like radio. Like when I was growing up, and like I'm in my 40s. Like I'm 44, and like growing up, like high school, you'd like listen to radio, try and win tickets, try and win prizes, and all that other stuff. And I always wanted to get into TV or radio, and so finally got into radio, and then we started having a family, but we didn't want to do the daycare route. We wanted one of us to stay home, and my wife was in a more secure job in a secure industry. So I was like, all right, once we had our second daughter, I'm like, I'm going to become the stay at home dad. And so I became the stay at home dad. Once I kind of got my routine down, handling, two daughters and all that good stuff, I'm like, I need to do something with my creative outlet. What can I do? So I started writing for a couple of sites like Bleacher Report and Yahoo. Started doing podcasts, and one of the two of the guys I used to work in radio with in New Jersey, we created a podcast called The Masters of None like 13, 14 years ago. We're still doing it, and we have fun. But then like I wanted to do a fatherhood one, and so a company that's in the fatherhood industry, they're like, hey, we'd love to have you start our fatherhood podcast. I did that for a while, ran the site. I was like one of the co-owners, and then in 2019 kind of want to do my own thing. We were kind of like, it was almost like the Beatles. Like we kind of knew like it was time to kind of go our separate ways, right? All six of us. It sucked, but like we kind of knew like, all right, this is where we need to go. And so other people kind of went back into their, like you said, the big boy careers and all that other stuff. And I still have a passion for fatherhood. I feel like you probably get this too, man. You like with everything that you do with fatherhood, it makes you a better father in the sense of like you're listening to more dads, you're listening to different stories, and you're like, oh man, I've been there. Like, yeah, sometimes I didn't, treat my kid the way that, I treated my kid the same way that my guest did, and they didn't really like it. And I'm like, all right, so it makes you reflect 24/7 on fatherhood. So I just feel like it makes me a better dad. I love hearing a lot of people's journeys, and like they always say cliches are there for a reason because they're true. You don't know what a person's journey is until you talk to them and like listen about what they did. And one of my favorite things talking to dads is if they break the cycle of growing up in a fatherless home, they became a dad. And it's really easy to say, like, oh, yeah, I'm not going to be that way, but nature versus nurture or whatever. But when you talk to dads, like, I didn't want to not be there for my kids, like my dad wasn't there for me, or I didn't want to live in a household where there was no love. So when you see guys and moms, I've interviewed moms too, but when you see them break the cycle, to me, like that is awesome. And the other thing that I love is when dads say like the best thing that I can do as a dad is they once they get out of the nest, they still want to come back and hang out for a bit. So like they have a good relationship after their kids get out of the house. So those are the two things I really appreciate when I hear from dads. Like they want to make sure that their kids want to hang out with them once they get older. And two, it's like if they didn't grow up in a household full of love, they changed that and made sure they did that. So that's my passion. I just love bringing, I always joke too, like Homer Simpson gets a bad rap, and sometimes we look at like, oh, Homer Simpson is the dumb dad who like fuddles his way through things, and all at the end it kind of works out. But like, we're not bad dads. Like we know what's going on, and I think no matter whether you're a mom or a dad, once you get a routine down, you got this parenting thing. Not like 100% lockdown because kids are always throwing different surprises at you, but I feel like dads need to like be shown that like we're good caregivers. Maybe not the exact same way as moms. I get that, right? We're not birthing kids, but there's
Mm-hmm.
different ways that dads can handle parenthood, and I think we can do it really well.
100%. 100%. I think that's so important. I mean, I feel like that's something we're always working toward as dad is we're always wanting to raise our kids in a way that we weren't raised or give them stuff that we didn't have growing up, whether that's love or material things or both or whatever the case may be. But ultimately, we are working toward that goal of wanting them to come back and hang out with us someday when we're older and when they're adults and then when we're in our, whatever age we're at. I had my kids young. I had my first kid when I was in my early 20s. So when I'm in my mid to late 40s, like I definitely want my kids to come back around and hang out and kick it and stuff like I do with my dad now, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the goal. And breaking that cycle is so important. Like Aaron and I both weren't raised by our biological parents. We were both raised by our. He was raised by his paternal grandma. I was raised by our maternal grandmother and whatnot. And then I didn't start living with my dad until I was about 14, 15 years old.
Oh wow.
So we didn't grow up in a very standard like household and whatnot. We both turned out all right, I think. But it's a lot of fun to, like you said, to hear those other perspectives and to get those perspectives from other dads. That's actually inspired like a ton of my writing over the last, I don't know, I would say three months or so. Like putting together, I have this thing on my website. It's called the Well Balanced Dad Diet. That was truly inspired by just like talking to a lot of the people that I had on up to that point, and then just adding to it and writing it. I mean, that's like 20,000 words of just like advice and different perspective and things I've gotten from talking to other people, and it's so much fun to share those journeys and to listen to those journeys because you learn something every single time from someone because they have
Yeah.
some kind of perspective as to what they did and how they did it, and especially for those A-list dads, those professional athletes that raise their kids going traveling on the road, stadiums, professional sports. Like I couldn't imagine. Like those kids love it because they're just traveling, having fun. But man, the stress that must bring, like just being away for long periods of time, especially these minor league baseball guys. Like these guys are gone for weeks at a time.
Yeah.
Like granted, they're within like so many hours, like 6, 7 hours, but they're gone for weeks
Yeah.
at a time from their kids, and they're just hustling, getting by, and scraping by, and stuff like that. So I can't imagine. So
I know that you before we started recording, we were talking about like, I'm a Red Sox fan, you're a Mariners fan. So I'm guessing you probably didn't watch it, but last night the ESPN broadcast of the Yankees Red Sox game, the second game, it had because they went into, and I appreciated like the fatherhood themes. They had,
mm,
different players talk about their dads, they were sharing different stories and all that. And you get that grind. It was like, one of the guys from the Red Sox was being interviewed and they were like, "What'd you do?" He's like, "Well, we're gonna be on a 10 game road trip." So he's like, my kids let me sleep in. They brought me breakfast in bed, which is great. Then we hung out, and then then we had to go to the ballpark for a doubleheader. But it was really cool to see like that perspective and in the idea that they're balancing work and family in their own unique way. And yeah, I get like a lot of the times where they're like, you know, they'll say to me, a lot of the dads, if they're like have a career that kind of is like very time fulfilling, they're like, gotta give a credit to my wife, and then like after a
yes,
while, once I retired, I was like, all right, now I'm gonna be doing a lot more than I possibly can. So it's like making up for lost time.
yeah. No, I mean, I think you see that a lot with a guy like Tom Brady who recently retired. Like everything he posts, like since his retirement, has his kids in the background. Like,
Yeah.
granted, yes, he had the publicized divorce and things like that and whatnot, but all you see is everything he posts. Like his kids are there with him, doing every single thing, and it's like that's so cool. Like he's doing exactly what he said he's gonna do.
Yep.
Like, yeah, he went through a messy divorce, but he has his priorities. Like, yes, he's having fun out on boats and throwing, like, hanging out with Mr. Beast and stuff, but who's
His
right
kids
there
were
with
so
him?
excited for that, right? Like that's
Oh,
some big
yeah.
dad like street cred for like. I mean, yeah, like everyone's like, oh, you must be like so happy your dad's Tom Brady. They see him 24/7. So that, I mean, yeah, it's cool and the stuff that he does, but like when he takes him on a boat on a yacht with Mr. Beast, it's like, are you kidding me right now? Right?
It's like, this is my dad's really Tom Brady. Like, it hits those kids a little different and stuff.
Yeah,
It's
no
it's
doubt.
super cool. Like, for my kids, it's like, oh, my dad's friends with Eric the Peanut Guy. Like, because Eric the Peanut Guy's a big deal around here.
Yeah,
That's like Eric and I just talk and we have conversations, away from the ballpark, at the ballpark, hang out, we sit together, things like that. Super fun, super great guy. But it's like to my girls, it's like, oh, my dad's friends with Eric the Peanut Guy, like that's really cool, kind
yeah.
of thing. So, but no, I think it's super cool when those athletes are just out there living life and killing it. But for you, who have been some of your favorite people that you've talked to throughout your list, throughout the time that have shared like the most interesting perspective or different perspectives, or just weren't at all what you may have expected them to be at face value?
Yeah, no doubt. Great question. So obviously, if you know, I know you can see my background. I'm a big Star Wars geek. So anytime I interview anybody in the Star Wars world, like Mark Hamill, T. Bradley Baker, anybody in that realm, man, it makes me super happy. But um, one of the biggest takeaways that Mark Hamill did say is like one of the things that he cherishes as a dad is that his kids still want to talk with him and be, in his life and all that. So that's cool. But then Jeff Foxworthy, again, he kind of surprised me where he grew up with not a great dad, and when he was trying to make his own career as a stand-up, he'd take a red eye after he was in the town somewhere, come home and so make sure that he was taking his daughters and his nieces and nephews, because they lived like right near each other where his brother and him, so they'd take him to school. So like to me, like that was the biggest thing. And Foxworthy said like, you should listen to your kids. He's like, make sure you listen to your kids as much as you want them to listen to you. And I think communication is one of the biggest things that we as parents need to do, not just talking, but also listening to where they're at. Like the idea of something that a 10-year-old or a 14-year-old or a 16-year-old might be going through, we could easily be like, oh, don't worry, in a few years that won't really matter. But, well, that's not really the great response, because right now and there, that is whatever's happening in their life, that's huge in their world. And I know sometimes people say like, oh, teenagers and all their, they're selfish and the world revolves around them. It's like, well, we were teenagers too. We felt that. We experienced that. But if you just go into those stereotypes, then all of a sudden you're almost like nurturing that negative stereotype. So the idea of just like listening to them and actually taking what they're going through, not like, with a quick like, oh, don't worry about it, or, rub some dirt on it, but seeing how it's affecting them, and maybe you can give them some advice that you've experienced if you experienced something similar. But I would say Foxworthy and Hamill were one. We were talking about sports and athletes. Like when I talk to a NASCAR driver, it's really cool because I was actually Crown Royal. Worked with them for a few things over the years, and they would take me to NASCAR events. And before that, no desire, no care about NASCAR. But once you actually, again, learn and take the time to understand things, like I have appreciation for NASCAR and just from soup to nuts how everything works, and how, like, here's a dad joke, everything's got to be finely tuned to like make sure everything goes off without a hitch. But family is huge. Like they have their trailers and they have their big, trucks with them and all that, and their buses, and families will go with them. If depending on, sometimes people are getting homeschooled, or sometimes during the summer they'll like travel with them if they're off for the summer. But like I love seeing that dynamic where, I don't know if you've ever been to a NASCAR event, but like it's intense, but then also too that the idea that family is really a huge factor in not just the drivers but the pit crew and all that other stuff, where it's like if people can swing it and people can bring their family from time to time, they really enjoy it. So that was one of the things where I appreciated NASCAR for what they're doing to make sure family was involved when they could be.
No, that's super cool. I guess I was like, normally you just don't think about those things, you know,
Yeah.
unless you're like there and you're looking at it. And NASCAR, I've never been to one, but I've started to gain an appreciation just kind of like learning about them and seeing them on like as athletes, because like they are athletes. Like they have to
Yep.
have a crazy amount of arm strength to steer a car at to however fast they're going at hundreds of miles an hour around these turns consistently, maintain control of that car, keep their heart rate, keep their breathing, their bodies and everything just in shape to do all that stuff. Like it's insane. Um, Guys are
Speaking of
athletes, and the
shape, like they need to like their seats, just like they're looking for every way to make that car as fast as possibly they can, right? When we talk
mm-hmm.
about shape, obviously they lose a lot of pounds when they're driving, but they have to, like, their seats are molded to their body. Like you have to stay in a certain shape to make sure, like, obviously if you go under, if you lose weight, cool, but you got, like, you can't gain too much weight, because then that seat, then they'll have to like bring that seat out and bring another one. And granted, they can do that, but that was one of the things where I thought I was like, whoa, like you got to make sure like you're not eating like fast food 24/7, because your
Oh
drivers,
yeah.
your stock, your manager and all that other stuff are gonna be like your pit crew chief like lay off the fries, man.
Right. right? And those pit crews like are such a good example of like family and like communication because they all have to be on the same page 100% of the time. If one person messes up, they just lost a lap or however
Yeah.
much, and now their guy's
Yep.
behind, and because someone didn't do their job, someone didn't do their part, and it's watching those pit crews work like in slow motion, like because they put slow motion videos out of just them doing their thing and like breaking it down, and it's like they're so efficient, like they're so ready, like it's an art, it's art, like
Yeah.
it's really cool to watch, but
And
NASCAR is
some of them,
one of
some of those
those.
guys in the pit crew, especially with tires and gas and all that stuff, are like ex college linemen,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was pretty cool. Like, cause like one of the events, like they let us do not on a NASCAR track, but like pit crew training thing somewhere in Charlotte. Um, we did like we had to run around, change the tires, do all other stuff. Like we were like the first time we were like idiots, and then after a while we got like more used to it. Like, all right, you do this, you do this. Like, all right, we had a game plan and it got a lot better. Nowhere near where we were like pit crew ready, but it was just something where like you could see the like you just talked about being on the same page. Like the from the first time to like the last time we did it was like I don't know, like 5, 6, 7 minutes was changed off from like our time. So
Dang.
yeah, communication no matter what industry is huge. So that's awesome, man.
Yeah, no, I love it. So, where was I going with that? I had a reason I was going with that, but I
Sorry.
lost it. You're good. You're good. But where was I going with it? Anyways, for you, kind of going from where you were working into being a stay at home dad to now your daughters are a little bit older. I assume they're what, teenagers now, right?
Yeah.
So how is that kind of transition like throughout your life? You know, being there for your family, going from working to stay at home dad, and when he became a stay at home dad, it wasn't as normal, not as normalized or being as normalized as it is today.
Yep.
So kind of how did that go among like your social circles to where it's like, oh yeah, I'm a stay at home dad, um, kind of thing. You know exactly
Yep.
what I'm talking about.
Yep.
It's like,
100%.
I'm a
And
writer
even
for a Bleacher Report, and I'm stay at home dad, kind of thing, you know.
no doubt. Yeah, I feel like you've totally been there. Like, and even today, like I think because of the circles we run in, right, Jay, where it's like, all right, it's more normalized. But if you look on a larger scale, it's still not as what we think it is. It's always like if you go to somewhere new, like a party, or you go to like an event, like a sporting event, or you're talking with other parents, like, oh, what do you do? What do you do? And you try to explain, they're like, it's not like they give you a side eye, but they kind of like, oh, so you really don't do anything, right? So it's
Exactly.
like what? And I really, I'll just say like, oh, I work from home, and like, what do you do? And I try and explain a couple things. But when I first became a stay-at-home dad, and I wasn't doing anything like this, what I'm doing now, like, you go to a park, and even though you're bringing kids, you had side eye from the moms and being like, oh, and be like if they're kids, like, oh, Timmy, come over here, we're gonna go to lunch now. But she's like, I'm not hungry yet. And it's like 10:30. It's like, all right, like you almost had like, do I have a scarlet letter on my chest right now because I'm the only
Mm-hmm.
dad? And there, but I will say, like, there were a couple of like, in my daughter's preschool in New Jersey at the time we were living, like, there was like a handful of moms that like brought me into their circle, and they were totally cool. They were like, what are your kids? Are you married? And all this other stuff. I'm like, yep. And I think like once they like again knew me, they're like, understand like who I am and all this stuff. Like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
cool. And like even like in different like if you take your kids to like a bookstore and they'll have like a reading hour or something like that, there were a few people that would be like, oh, it's great to see you, Art, and all that other stuff. So they would include me. So there were certain times where if I was going to a grocery store to do food shopping, they're like the woman behind the deli counter, and I've written about this, but oh, you're letting your wife off today, and you're taking the kids today. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, if you only knew that this is my normal thing.
Oh my goodness. I hold on. I'm gonna just pause you right there because
Yeah.
the last 3 times I've gone to the store, the last 3 freaking times I have gone to the store, I got it once from a random dude that said, "Oh, looks like you got your hands full there." I want to punch this dude in the face. And then the other time I was like the checkout lady, she said something along those lines, and then like the last time I went, I got another comment, and like you can tell when it's like positive. It's like, hey, look at you, like, you know, respect kind of thing, to versus where it's like condescending and patronizing.
Yep.
It's like I can fight you right now. Um, like, come on. But no, I agree. Like there are like different social circles that will accept you. Like once they know you and stuff, and
Yeah.
once they get to know you and things like that. I think it's funny that you mentioned preschool, because that's kind of where it starts. You know, like my daughter's preschool said a
Yeah.
lot of things in motion, like positive things in motion. Like I don't think I've mentioned this on the podcast until now, but my daughter's preschool teacher that she had a couple years ago is my now girlfriend.
Oh wow.
Um,
Okay.
Great things come from preschools. Um, great
Nice.
things come from preschools, but no, it's you definitely have to find your circles at these different social places because, like, my daughter has a few friends from she was just finished kindergarten, but has a few friends who's like I've been able to get to know their parents and been accepted into like those circles as like the single parent that's kind of like just kind of there and things like that. So it's been really fun to get involved in those different circles and get to know people differently and socially. And it's definitely new to me because I'm great at doing this, like podcasting, hosting, talking to new people, things like that. It's no problem. But when I actually have to like get to know like my daughter's friends and like I'm kind of forced into the situation to get to know them and hang out with them, different story.
Yeah. But I will say though, it is a good thing. This is like a great tip. Like you want to know, like not with all of your friends, yeah, with all of your kids' friends, but like with the ones that they hang out with a lot. Like my wife and I are we like the fact that we get to know those parents because we kind of see if they're in the same type of like parenting, in the they have the same parenting ideas or something like that. Like I'm not saying everyone has to be exactly like us, but if
Hmm.
you're in the realm, like if you have a Venn diagram and like you're like connected somehow, like I'm totally cool with that. But it's also a great way to see like what that environment is because as they get older, it's like when they become teenagers, they're going to be doing things that you're not going to meet the parents right away, or do certain things. But once you want to get to know those certain parents that they're hanging out with, just to make sure that everything is cool, and you're like, all right, cool, this is a fun environment and a safe environment. Again, maybe that sounds overprotective, but you can never, especially these days, you can never be too cautious.
True.
So as
True.
much as it might be painful to like talk to them, find something that you guys are like you have
Yes.
similarities in, and kind of go from there. And hopefully, like, because I think it's much easier when you're hanging out with friends. You kind of build relationships with your kids' friends, and like they become friends like stronger and stronger over the years, and you can hang out with them. So it's like, hey, let's all meet at the park, or let's go to a movie together, or a minor league baseball game, right? And it
100%.
just
Yeah.
makes things a lot easier because everybody's on the same page.
100%. No, my daughter definitely has a couple of friends like that. Like ones that were used to be our neighbors in the apartments we live in. No, I'm friends with her parents, with those
Nice.
girls' parents, and just text and talk, and we're just friends and whatnot. And I'll, like text them like, "Hey, my kid asked about your kids. Like, what are you guys doing?" Kind of thing. And she also co-parents with her ex-husband and stuff. So it's like trying to get on the same schedule doesn't always work out. It's like, oh, I guess we'll just hang out. Uh, I'll come hang out with you guys and we'll kick it. Or she has another friend that's a grade older than her, but they're best buds, and we all go to the same gym and stuff. So it's like I see them.
Nice.
They do karate together at the gym. So it's like I see her parents a lot. This other kid's parents a lot, and
Yeah.
birthday parties we're invited to and stuff. So that was really easy connection, super fun, super easy. But uh, one thing I didn't hit on that you mentioned is how listening is so important as a parent. You mentioned that you hit on that earlier, and I want to kind of bring us back to that. A lot of work that I do now, I work in mental health, and
Hmm.
it's super important to listen to clients and patients and youth and families and just really listen. Um, and I see it all the time when working with families with children or youth or whatever you want to call them, young people. There's so many terms, but parents so often either have, or caregivers have way too high of expectations for 5, 6, 7 year olds, or no expectations, or they think they're not doing as good of a job as they think they are, or they're just not listening. Like they just miss like the point. Like your kid just wants support. Your kid just wants to be loved. Your kid's been through something or they're experiencing something. Like we miss. Like I feel like we miss it as parents. Like we have blinders on. Like we want them to do well. They have to do well. They have to do better. They have to get better. They have to succeed in their treatment. They have to succeed in their recovery. They have to get through this trauma or whatever it is. And it kind of drives me crazy because it's like we don't, like you're not giving your kid a chance. Like your expectations are way up here, they are way down here. They might get to here, and that's it. Maybe they're not going to get to here. Like we
Yeah.
have to lower our expectations, and we have to go to where our kids at. I feel like that's so hard to explain to some, like, because it's not always parents that are the ones I'm working with. It's aunts, it's uncles, it's grandmas, it's grandpas, it's someone else other than a parent. Sometimes, not all the time, but it's like you have to bring your expectations way down. Like per kid, your expectations are going to be different. You got to bring those expectations way down. We have to meet our kids where they're at. And I feel like that's missed, but that's where listening comes in. Like you
Yeah.
mentioned, you have to listen and kind of wait and see and feel them out before kind of expecting too much. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this too? To kind of play into that a little bit more because I feel like that listening is so important.
Yeah, no doubt. And I gotta say, like, kudos to you, man, for the work you're doing in the mental health field, because I think, again, that's something where it's like, oh yeah, more people are talking about it, but like, are we? Like, are are we doing stuff? And the different, dad circles that I'm in, like a few of them, like some of the dads committed suicide, and everyone's like, well, we kind of saw this coming, and I'm like, as much as, yeah, you can say that, but it's like, I'm not saying you have to say, you can't save everybody. This isn't a Hollywood ending or a Hollywood movie, right? But like, you want to make sure that we're doing as much as we possibly can for your circle. And you mentioned, maybe not just parents, but aunts, uncles, or grandparents or caregivers are, their expectations are too high. And maybe some of those expectations are like, if they were, given custody because of a parent's passing, or parent can't do it, or whatever, right? Whatever the things are, maybe the caregivers like expectations, like I have to do this, and like all of a sudden they're like raising not just their game, but the kids that they're watching, the kids that they're in their custody. It's like we need to be like the best of the best and the best, because I need to prove like this is why I'm taking care of them, right? So there's probably a lot of stories there, but I
Yeah.
think I think the idea of listening and making sure you let your, like you said, your kid wants to be, know that they're loved, and that's the thing, man. Like you want to make sure that they are loved, and part of that is making sure that you're listening to them and understanding. Like I'm very fortunate to have two daughters, and my wife, like, just we all talk. Like at the dinner table, there's no tablets, there's no phones, there's nothing, and we just talk about our day. And they're not just like yes or no questions. We talk about, and it's not just my wife and I leading the questions; it's my daughters leading the questions, and we'll be open and honest with everything. Maybe my thing is I'm a little bit too open and honest sometimes with certain things, just because my wife and I'll be like, hey, maybe like we shouldn't say everything that they're, I'm like, I get it, but like I think nowadays, like each parent, each generation deals with certain things. But man, like one of our kids, like our youngest, doesn't have a phone yet. She's gonna be getting one soon for her birthday, but like they're not on social media, and they're like, and my oldest finally realized, she's like, thanks. I see a lot of my friends on social media, and it's not just FOMO, but mental health comes from seeing what other people are doing and judging what other people are saying. And then if someone
Mhm.
comments on your post and they're halfway around the world, and you're like, I don't even know this person, but this person's making me sad. It's like we have,
Yeah.
like, kids have enough to deal with finding themselves, that they need the comments to open up 1,000% more, just because it's like I'm Mr. Angry, keyboard gangster guy, and I don't even know who this person is, but I'm gonna comment that they suck or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
I think that the fact that we need to be there for them and understand like what they're doing. And we also have to realize that if you're in a family and you have multiple kids, every kid reacts and interprets the world differently, and you need to make sure that you're catering towards that, their style of who they are, right? Like one person, direct conversation, can sit down. My other daughter doesn't want to sit down. Like if she wants to talk, we go for a walk, and it's just kind of like talking and walking, and it kind of makes her feel more uh, open to talking and having these
Mm-hmm.
conversations. And you learn that through their, their, the way that they communicate to you, or their body language. If they're kind of like, I don't know, like you can tell someone really doesn't want, like we all
100%.
know, like if you're in a, relationship with, a significant other, and you're just kind of like, oh, like we're hanging out, like we have to do these plans or something like that. So
Yes.
you kind of take that on with your kids, and it's like, all
Mm-hmm.
right, they're not happy in this environment, or they're not happy with the way we're talking. It's like, all right, what do you want to talk about? We can talk about something totally different than your math test. Like, what have you been listening to? Like, what do whatever, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
on my website, my kids and I will write articles together. We'll do like pop culture reviews and stuff like that. And it's just,
Mm-hmm.
they're teaching me about stuff, I'm teaching them about stuff. And we love the Marvel movies, like comic book movies, Star Wars movies. We, we geek out over certain things, and then they show me certain things. Like they're trying to get me to play Breath of the Tears of the Kingdom. I played Breath of the Wild. I haven't played Tears of the Kingdom yet because it's all on them right now. They're playing, and as
Yeah.
dad, like run your business, making sure the family's safe. Like I'll get there in a second. Like I have video games I would love to play with. I love video games, but I'm like, take care of the garden, or like take care of, or play video games. I should probably do
Probably
something
should
that's more
probably should do the
constructive, right?
garden. Yeah. No,
So
100%.
I know I kind of went off a tangent, but I think just listening is huge, and just finding each of your child's way that they communicate the best. It can even be a car ride. Like I was taking my oldest to driving school, education last week, and it was a month. Like it stunk that like driving, it was kind of out of our way, but like the conversations when she was in the car were great. We were talking about a whole other things, and we were we're laughing and doing some other things. So it was a great time. And even though it was like a pain in my butt, like driving
Yes.
like an hour each way, like no, like maybe like 2 hours like total the whole time each day that week. But like I, certain things I was taking for granted, but towards the end of the week, I was like, a lot of great conversations came out of that. So listening and understanding what they're meaning, what they're saying something. Cause I think no matter what type of relationship you're in, you gotta read between the lines almost,
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And you started off there just talking about like how in our dad casting like circles and whatnot, they are super supportive. They are, very similar and very similar like ideas. We're all kind of working for the same goal, just on different paths to get there. Um, but you mentioned suicide, and it's like, oh yeah, I saw that coming, and it's like, well, why didn't none of us did anything? Like none of us did anything. We all saw it, and the kind of the irony behind that. It's not ironic, but there's some irony there. Is that 90+% of people think suicide can be prevented. It's like a statistic from the Americans for Suicide Prevention, the AFSP, and men's suicide is crazy. It's a 4-to-1 ratio. You get up into men that are 40, 50 Caucasian. It's it's some of the highest in the world in our country for Caucasian men that are in their 40s and 50s. And then if you get into older adults, 60s, 70, goes even higher. It goes higher and higher and higher. Um, we're not in a place like some other countries like South Korea. Like their men to women ratio is like 100 to 1. Some third world countries is over 100 to 1, like
Wow.
men to women, and it's concerning, especially when you hear someone say like, "Oh yeah, I kind of saw that coming," and "Oh, I'm not surprised," or it's like it's sad because like, "Oh yeah, we're not surprised." Like, of course it's gonna be a man, and it kind of happens and things like that. But it's like, what are we really doing about this conversation? It's like we can talk about it on all our different platforms, and we can bring as much awareness as we can to it, but what's really coming on the back end of this? Are we what are we doing as individuals? Like Brock from um, Home Dad Chat
Yeah.
podcast I had on a couple weeks ago, started a dad group in Cincy and Cincinnati. You know, they have the home dad con that's coming up here in the next few months and things like that. It's like that's the kind of work we all got to try to do on the side and out there in our own communities, because it's about building that community and kind of bringing people together, um, to give them that support. Because you know, if I'm having those thoughts and those feelings, but then I'm part of a dad group and I'm getting that support and that's helping me,
Yeah.
like that's huge. But if there's no resources, or I'm not finding any resources or anything like that, and when I'm looking and searching, like it's going to be hard. Like, yes, I can listen to podcasts all day, but there's something about being physically there with other people that's just does something to the brain. That's good for the brain. Um, and then on kind of going from there, you know, you mentioned kind of you got to learn how your kids communicate, and that's kind of where the whole love languages things come in. You have to learn how your kids give and receive love, because it's going to be different than yours. You know,
Yeah.
it's going to be different. I'm lucky so far that my little girls, they very similar love languages to myself, so it's been very easy.
Nice.
Um, but it's like learning in like my new relationship with my girlfriend. It's like we're not the same in all these ways. You know, we're very similar. It's very close, but it's also kind of different at the same time, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, because it's challenging, but it's different because it's like how, and then but then I also have to communicate my love language to her, kind of thing. It's like I think I told her like really early when we started dating, like, hey, you know, don't get me gifts. Like, you can if you want, that's fine. I'll accept it. I'll be happy. But really inside what I'm feeling and being able to talk about the feeling, like, hey, that makes me feel really uncomfortable. Like it makes me feel some kind of like different and stuff. It's like that's on me to work through and like get over, kind of thing. But like
Yeah.
right now, like I'm gonna work on that, but I can't do that. So just learning those love languages, you know. And if you don't know them, I think it's so important to go on online and search the love language quiz and do it with your kids, each kid. Do it with your spouse, because then they can change over time too.
Yeah.
They can change. Like if you haven't done it in a few years and you feel like you're not as connected to your partner, to your spouse, maybe do it and see. Oh, okay, that's why we haven't been spending a lot of quality time together. And your top love language right now is quality time. And wow, look at that.
Yeah.
Simple, easy fix kind of thing. But um, a lot of that comes down to just kind of, I feel like as dads, we have a very good gut instinct. We kind of know when something's off. We know when something's up with our kids or with our partner, and kind of a sixth sense, if you will. So, for you, Art, what do you do to help you kind of follow that feeling, follow your gut as a dad?
Yeah, man. I just gotta say the love languages, the books, like one for like, any relationship, and then there's one for kids. And like you said, take a quiz online. That's such a great way to like an activity to learn to better yourself and also better relationships with your family. So and like the relationships you care about, and the fact you're talking about gift giving is like just something like my wife says, you're like, to me, she's like, you're a great gift giver. You listen, you pay attention to what people want. Like I'll say something in February, and then for my birthday in August, you're like, you were listening. And I'm like, yeah, but like she hates gift giving because she's like, I don't know what to get you and all this other stuff. So I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. Like I'm more about like whatever you're looking to do like through your love language is fantastic. So yeah.
Yeah,
um
I think
yeah.
what you mentioned there, like, it's super important. Like,
Yeah.
if you in a relationship, I don't think at any point it's wrong, but we all have a notes app on our phone. If your partner says something like small, like, this is my favorite flavor, this is what I'm really into right now, write that down. Like, I have a whole note in my phone about my girlfriend, and I've literally updated it in front of her. And I'm like, okay, cool, that's good to know. It's like, because I don't want to forget these things. I mean, I've had
Yep.
5 concussions, so I'm gonna forget stuff. I know,
Oh
fun
my
fact.
god. Okay.
Um, but yeah, I've never had second impact, thankfully.
Good.
Um, yeah, so we're good there. But you know, it's like write your stuff
But
down.
you taking the time to write that note, because like you said, like you want to remember things, you've had concussions, so you're like, I don't want to forget that. Like that there in itself is a great love language and a gift to her, being like, I care about what you want. I care about the things that make you happy in life. And so that to me is just is another step, man. So I love it.
Yeah, no, and I care about what you say. I care about what you're saying. It's like I haven't been great in the past. You know, there's a reason I got divorced. It wasn't just one person more than the other. Everyone does things wrong in their situations, their relationships. We learn and grow as people. It's something I want to be better at. So it's like I'm gonna commit to be better at it.
Yeah. Something that our pastor said last yesterday, just talking about if someone says like, "Oh, Jay, I didn't know like this. No, that doesn't sound like you." Blah blah blah. And like, and the best way, he's like, his one of his idols or favorite authors, like, "Oh yeah, that was me. That was like 5 J's ago."
Yeah.
That was me. Like, I've learned and grown. Like, the idea, like, if you keep on doing the same thing over and over again expecting different results, that's the definition of insanity, right? Like,
True.
that's the phrase out there that people have on shirts or bumper stickers or whatever the heck. But like, the idea of just you trying to be like, yeah, I'm trying to better myself. And I think that's, you kind of the question you said before, we kind of going back about the love languages and communications and writing notes down. But like, that's the thing where it's like, if you want to become a better dad, right, or just a better person, it's like you learn from certain things. Like, I was having a conversation with my dad, and he said something that was kind of like trying to make a joke, but then like not in a bad way, but I was just like, oh, I see where you're going with this. You're trying to like talk about such and such, but I'm like, well, I want to learn more about this, because if we want to learn, if we want to get ahead and we want to better ourselves, the idea of learning about other people and different cultures and what this day means, we won't have to, like, hopefully we won't repeat history, right? And he was like,
Hmm.
yeah, it's a good point, right? So it's like the idea of like trying to better yourself, not just for your own self-improvement, but for the people around you and in your circles, right, that you care about. Because I think that, like, I think any, like, nowadays people can kind of sniff out if someone's being fake or real, right? Like, I
Hmm.
always joke, it's funny, like, instead of keeping up with the Joneses, it's keeping up with the Instagram family, where they'll take this beautiful picture of Disney World, but like leading up to that picture and after that picture, everyone's having a nervous melt, like a meltdown, or someone's like ice creams like fell on the ground and someone's crying and they're like, we really have to wait in this
Yes.
line. And it's like you captured that great beautiful moment in front of, like, Cinderella's castle, but like, how's the rest of your day going, right?
Right.
So the idea of like thinking that everyone has it better than you or whatever is like, it's not always going to be the case. And I think the idea of just making sure that your kids know that you care about them in the ways that they want to be cared for,
Hmm.
and that comes through learning and talking and communication, learning their love language. So you can have all the best intentions, like, I'm going to do this today and that's going to make their day so happy, but it's like they're not really into this game anymore, they're not really into this like comic book anymore. So did you listen to them when they were talking about like what they're into now? That's the thing,
Hmm.
where it can't always just be like, I'm very routine oriented, right? Like, Tuesday's
Yes.
cleaning day, Friday is shopping day, whatever it's
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
I'm, my OCD like goes out of whack if I have to shop on a Sunday. But just
Oh,
the
it drives me
idea of
crazy
like,
when you do it on a different when I have to do something on a different day than what I'm used to. It's like this is my normal day to do this, or like you know, I feel like as fathers we're creatures of habit.
yep,
We get used to just one thing, and that's just how men's brains work.
yep.
It's just how our brains work. You know.
It's like Sheldon. It's like, today's comic book day or today is Chinese food day, right? It's like
Hmm.
I see more and more. I'm like, ah, Sheldon was right about that. But no, I'm just, so yeah. I mean, just kind of, you're going back to finish answering the question. It's just like, make sure you're paying attention to the cues that your kids are leaving you, and that comes through like actually listening. So
I feel like along with that, like along with listening and being able to follow your dad gut and stuff like that, it's just about being present. When you're spending time with them. I think this is a good kind of final talking point here is just like being present solves probably, I would say, at least 60% of any disconnect you might have with your kids or with your partner or your spouse or whatever you want to call that person. Um, Having that, being present with them, like putting the phone down, going out and doing something, whether it's for a drive, going for a walk, taking the dogs out, or like this week since I don't have my kids in the afternoons, and even my girlfriend and I, we're gonna go on walks. We're gonna go down to the river and just like walk and hang out and stuff.
yeah,
And like we're figuring things out like with the kids, and mixing and matching all that. But it's like this week, I know I don't have the kids, and I know I have more time to give her. So it's like we're gonna go down to the river because we live right off the Columbia River here in the Tri Cities. So um, we're gonna go for walks and we're gonna hang out and we're gonna talk and just enjoy like the sunset and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, but am I gonna have my phone in my pocket? Yeah, but where is it gonna stay? In my pocket,
Yep.
you know. So it's
Well,
just super
my
important.
kids will call me out on that, man. Like I'll preach like, oh, put your phone down. Like I said, we at the dinner table and all that other stuff. Or if you even go out to eat, we're spending this money. We should all hang out and have a meal together. We're not just going to be on like a device or
Yeah.
whatever, right? But my kids would be like, Dad, she's like, your generation, always in your phones. I was like, thanks. So it's like, it's yeah.
No, I love
Because I'll be
that.
checking an email. I'll be checking something to make sure, like, we're on time or whatever. And she's like, "You and your generation all on your phones, Dad." I was like, "All right,
Oh
good
my
one." Because like
gosh.
we're very sarcastic in like a loving way. I
No,
know it
I
sounds
love
like a
that.
oxymoron, but like it's like and I think in encouraging your kids' sense of humor, like you want them to be book smart, but you also want them to be street smart. And I think
Hmm.
having them have a good sense of humor doesn't have to be exact same humor as yourself, or they don't have to have the exact like my one of my daughters has like an outgoing, like funny, haha, like personality and like sense of humor. My other one's got like a dry sense of humor. Like she said something during church, and it just like I had to like bite my lip because I'd be like laughing out loud, and I'm just like I can't do this, but making sure that you encourage your kids in a healthy form of like a sense of humor, I think will make them stronger people, but also be able to laugh through the hard times as well.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think that's so important. Like you have to encourage your kids to be funny and to be book smart and street smart and whatnot. And I think kind of what you hit on there, it's like, we're paying for this, like let's get the most out of it. Let's get the most out of this experience. And that's kind of like where I'm kind of struggling with like my older daughter, my older one, she's almost 6 here in a couple weeks, but where she likes to have multiple forms of like stimulation at one time, where it's like she wants to be drawing and watching TV, or she wants to have like a book in her hands but not reading the book but watching TV, or playing on her Switch, but like doing just multiple things at the same time. And it's like, let's just pick one. Let's just focus on one. Just one. That's all I'm
Yeah,
asking. You can still have something, like whether you're playing your Donkey. She loves Donkey Kong right now. Like she's obsessed with playing Donkey Kong on her Switch.
that's awesome.
Um, that's what she loves because there's no reading involved. I
Yeah,
haven't let her play video games with reading yet because she just finished kindergarten. She's really looking forward to being able to play Pokemon on her Switch. Um,
nice.
we're big Pokemon nerds over here. Um, but
That's awesome.
it's
See,
like,
that's a great way to bond over. It's like like what you. Oh, I love that. That's
yeah, no,
great.
we've always bonded over Pokemon. Like she has a bunch of Pokemon plushes. Like I have Pikachu tattoo on my, where is it? It's on this side of my forearm.
Oh, nice,
So I have that one and whatnot. So that's for my older daughter. I'm waiting for my younger daughter to decide what her favorite one is, and then I'll get hers back to back with this other one. Uh,
nice. That's awesome.
but it's all about finding those different things and different ways you can bond with your kid. But you got to be present. You got to listen. Just be there for your family, but also be there with your family.
100%.
It's
Spot
100%
on.
right there. But I wanted to show you one thing here that you'll probably enjoy. So this is from 2000, I don't even know, 16, 17 maybe. So it's when the Mariners had Nelson Cruz, James Paxton, and Robinson Cano all on the team.
Oh,
So and
nice.
Kyle Seager. So this bobblehead right here,
Oh, nice. That's
yeah.
awesome.
And so it's a Han. For if you guys aren't watching on YouTube, it's a Kyle Seager Star Wars bobblehead. Uh,
That's amazing.
Former Mariners
Well
third
done.
baseman, and this guy, I would love to talk to him because he was always like such a dad, like on and off the field, like with his kids. Like I'm pretty sure that's what he said when he retired. When he's like, I'm done. I'm not coming back. Like I'm done done. Granted, his play kind of fell off too. I'm pretty sure there was an elbow injury. Um, but he was like 1 year off from like being able to, like, the shift restrictions were coming off, and like he was looking still healthy, but his elbow was kind of falling off, and things like that. But he always talked about, like, especially toward the end of his career, like, it's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go and be a dad. Like, there's always so much love from that dude for his family.
Yeah.
And like the Seegers in general, like Kyle and Corey, like when they had their all-star jerseys or like their nickname jerseys, like Kyle's brother, Corey's brother, kind of thing. And there's just like so much family love. And I love Kyle Seeger. Think he's such a good dude. Like, he was asked if he was coming out of retirement to go and play with his brother in Texas. He's like, "No, I'm good." He's like, "I'm having
Yeah.
fun being a dad," kind of thing. And that's just, it's like, good for you, dude. Like, just an awesome dude. But Art, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I can't believe it's already been an hour almost. Um, that's my favorite part about this thing, is like you just get talking, just like all these different topics and things like that. It's super fun. But it's been super fun. Art, tell all the people where they can find you. I'll link it in the notes, but tell them where they can keep up with you.
Yeah, thanks again for having me on your show. Keep up the great work, and I hope people pick up your book. Because I think, the baseball game with dad, it's you can get it on Amazon, all that good stuff. But like, just again, like you want to have these books. Like, I think reading to your kids is awesome, and that's a great book. But kids are at the reading level. So, congrats on like your podcast and stuff that you're doing, and making sure you're being there for your kids. But people can follow me on Art of Fatherhood.net. Then they'll have links to like my Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, all that good stuff. You can see like my podcast, just Google Art of Fatherhood and I'll be there. But really appreciate the time. And again, you guys keep up the great work with what you're doing. You and AA Ron. I
Yes,
love that.
sir. Yes, sir. And then we have a common partner now, just while we're plugging here. Forefathers Clothing.
Nice.
They're a sponsor of
Yeah.
your podcast, and we're affiliated with them now too.
Nice.
Incredible. Love
Nick
those
is
guys
doing
over
great
there.
work over there, man.
Nick's
I'm glad you're doing
such
stuff
a
with them.
good dude. Such a good dude. But yeah, make sure you check them out too. Art and I both have ways that you can support both of us. Buy two polos, and you can support both of us, one of each of us. So, um, anyways, Art, any final parting words for the people?
Nah, just like you said, like this whole conversation was just being there for your kids in any shape, matter, or form, whether it's listening or being present. And yeah, just find your circle of people you trust, of like getting dad advice, and like you're talking about like different dad groups out there. There's a lot of great ones out there, and just I think everybody wants to feel connected some way or somehow, and podcasts are a great way to feel that way. But if you want to do in person, just look for people that you'd want to run with in those circles that kind of share your parenting style. So yeah, just be there and don't be afraid to like reach out to someone and like, it's like, oh, that dad's wearing a He-Man shirt. I'm a He-Man fan. And just be like, hey man, nice shirt. And just kind of go from there and see what you're going there. Cause you need your own personal time as well as your, being there as a dad and being there as a significant other and all of this stuff. But yeah, just make sure you're there for everyone, including yourself is I think me for the bottom line.
100%. I love that. Well, Art, thank you again for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Um, I look forward to new episodes of your show every week. Whenever they come out, I look forward to them. You have some great conversations over there. So please,
Thanks.
guys, make sure you go and listen to The Art of Fatherhood. It's a great podcast. Like I said, it's definitely in my top three of dadcasts. So great show, great stuff. Art, thanks for coming on again. It's been a great time.
Thank you, man. Really enjoyed it and keep up the great work, man.
Nice audience, giving us out. Thank you, guys.